So let me tell you about the Dread Feeder, because apparently the universe needed something worse than taxes and rush hour traffic combined. This thing, and I use the term thing, because no language in the known galaxy had adequate words for what it actually was, had spent the last 3 centuries making entire civilizations wish they'd never evolved past single-celled organisms. It didn't just kill you. Oh no. That would be merciful. It fed on fear, which meant it needed you alive and absolutely terrified for as long as possible. The Quilaxians found this out the hard way. Picture a race of 7-foot-tall warrior aliens who'd conquered half their galactic sector through sheer intimidation and strategic brutality. These guys made Klingons look like guidance counselors. They had 3 rows of teeth, exoskeletons that could deflect plasma fire, and a cultural greeting that translated roughly to, "I acknowledge your existence and will probably fight you later." The Dread Feeder rolled into their empire on a Tuesday, because apparently cosmic horrors don't respect weekends, and by Friday, the entire Quilaxian military command was found huddled in a supply closet rocking back and forth and whimpering about the teeth in the darkness and the screaming that tastes like childhood. Their therapist estimated it would take 4 generations before any Quilaxian could sleep without a nightlight again. The Galactic Council, which was basically the universe's most ineffective bureaucracy with better technology, immediately quarantined Sector 9. They slapped up warning beacons, deployed drone patrols, and issued approximately 7,000 safety bulletins in 400 languages. The message was clear: stay out or become a psychological casualty statistic. Which brings us to Marcus Webb, who was absolutely, definitely, 100% not paying attention to any of that. Marcus was a freelance cargo hauler, which was a fancy way of saying he owned a beat-up ship held together by duct tape, optimism, and what he suspected was actual prayer from the engine. He'd been cruising through the sector, supposed to be checking his navigation alerts, but instead was deep into a video compilation titled "Cats Falling Off Things for 10 Hours. "That's quality content right there," Marcus said to nobody, because talking to yourself in space wasn't crazy. It was efficiency. No need to wait for someone else to appreciate your witty observations. His ship's AI, which he'd named Gerald because it had that energy, finally interrupted. "Marcus, we've crossed into quarantine space, multiple warnings detected. Suggest immediate course correction." Yeah, in a minute, Gerald. This cat's about to misjudge a jump onto a ceiling fan. "Marcus, the quarantine is related to a Class Omega threat entity. Psychological hazard level is catastrophic." The catastrophic thing is that this video only has 2 million views. Criminal, honestly. And that's how Marcus Webb, 32 years old, holder of a bachelor's degree in supply chain management he'd never used, survivor of 3 corporate restructurings and 1 truly terrible roommate situation, became the first human to encounter the most feared entity in the galaxy. The Dread Feeder had sensed him immediately, of course. A new mind, unshielded, untainted by knowledge of what was coming. Delicious. It hadn't fed properly since the Quilaxians, and those warriors, while initially satisfying, had broken too quickly. This new consciousness felt different, though. Chaotic. Cluttered. Oddly focused on something called cat videos. No matter. Fear was universal, and this creature would scream like all the others. The Dread Feeder materialized in Marcus's cargo hold with all the dramatic flair of a theatrical production. Reality bent, shadows coalesced, and the very atoms seemed to weep at its presence. It took a form that had driven the Quilaxian general into catatonic shock, a writhing mass of eyes and mouths, tentacles that existed in more dimensions than most species could perceive, and a presence that whispered of every death you'd ever feared. Marcus, who'd come down to check on a weird noise, stopped at the cargo hold entrance with a protein bar halfway to his mouth. "Huh," he said. The Dread Feeder, thrown off by this response, intensified its manifestation. The eyes multiplied, the mouths opened wider, revealing teeth behind more teeth. A sound like the universe screaming emanated from its core. Marcus chewed his protein bar thoughtfully. "So, you're going with the Lovecraft aesthetic. Bold choice. Little derivative, but you commit to it, I'll give you that. This was not the expected reaction. The dread feeder, confused but determined, shifted forms. It became Marcus's childhood bedroom, but wrong. The walls breathed, his old toys had too many eyes, and something scratched from inside the closet with a rhythm that matched his heartbeat. "Oh man, you did your research." Marcus actually looked impressed. "That's my old room. Had that same space shuttle poster and everything. Though, real talk, it was already pretty scary. I had this sneaking suspicion there was something under the bed, but it turned out to be 3 years of missing homework and a sandwich I'd forgotten about. The sandwich was definitely scarier by the end." The dread feeder, now genuinely annoyed, cycled through a greatest hits compilation of terror. Giant spiders. The sensation of falling forever. Being naked in public during an important presentation. The heat death of the universe visualized in excruciating detail. Clowns, because clowns were apparently a universal horror, which said something about the nature of reality itself. Marcus watched like he was scrolling through streaming options. Spiders, classic. Falling, yeah, that's got legs. Public nudity, I mean, that's more embarrassing than scary, right? The heat death thing is actually kind of beautiful in a nihilistic way. And clowns, okay, clowns are objectively unsettling. I'll grant you that one. But here's my question. Are you taking requests? Because my actual nightmare is showing up to the airport and realizing my passport expired 3 months ago. The creature paused its manifestations. In all its eons of existence, across countless civilizations and species, never had it encountered a being that provided commentary, critique even, as if fear were a performance to be reviewed. It dove deeper into Marcus's mind, searching for the primal terror that lurked in every conscious being. Surely there was something. Everyone feared something. What it found was baffling. This human's brain was like a haunted house, but one where the ghosts had gotten lazy and the cobwebs were just regular dust nobody had bothered to clean. There was fear there, certainly, but it was buried under layers of memes, random song lyrics, anxiety about things that hadn't happened yet, and an extensive mental catalog of pizza toppings ranked by controversy level. "You getting anything?" Marcus asked, apparently aware of the intrusion. "Because I should warn you, it's pretty messy in there. I've been meaning to organize my thoughts, but you know how it is. You say you'll do it this weekend, and then suddenly it's been 6 years." The dread feeder withdrew, reforming into a vaguely humanoid shape because it needed a moment to think. This was wrong. This was all wrong. The human should be a gibbering mess by now, not offering color commentary on the quality of existential dread. Marcus leaned against the doorframe. "So, what's your deal exactly? Are you here to eat me, possess me, or is this like a tax audit situation where you're just here to make my day worse?" The dread feeder didn't answer, mostly because it was having its first crisis of professional confidence, and it didn't appreciate the timing. The dread feeder decided to take a different approach. Clearly, surface-level horrors weren't working. It needed to excavate the deep fears, the ones this human didn't even know he had. It extended its consciousness like a surgical probe, diving past the clutter and chaos. What it discovered was a hierarchy of anxiety that made absolutely no sense from a survival perspective. At the top, most feared above all else, the possibility that Marcus had left his stove on before leaving Earth 3 months ago. Not death, not pain, not the extinction of his species. An appliance that might be wasting electricity. Second, disappointing his mother. The creature examined this fear, found memories of a woman who wielded guilt like a tactical weapon, and actually felt a flicker of something that might have been sympathy. Third, running out of coffee in deep space. A legitimate concern, admittedly, given his current location. Fourth, the gnawing suspicion that everyone at his last job knew he had no idea what he was doing, and they'd all just been too polite to say anything. Fifth, accidentally sending a text meant for his friend to his ex-girlfriend. The memory associated with this fear was still fresh and, the creature had to admit, genuinely mortifying. The list went on. Credit card debt. The inevitability of aging. Whether he'd fed his sister's cat before leaving, even though his sister had specifically said she'd handle it. But what if she forgot? The general, ambient dread of existing in modern human society where everything was expensive and nothing made sense. The dread feeder tried to manifest these fears. It created a vision of Marcus's mother, shaking her head in profound disappointment while his apartment burned because of the stove he'd left on, his credit card statement scrolling infinitely in the background and no coffee anywhere. Marcus winced. Okay, that's actually pretty rough. But here's the thing. I live with these fears every single day. They're like background radiation at this point. You can't scare me with my Tuesday afternoon. Up in orbit, the Galactic Council's monitoring station was having a collective meltdown. They'd been watching Marcus's bio readings, expecting the telltale spike of absolute terror followed by the flat line of psychological collapse. Instead, they were seeing what could only be described as mild irritation, with brief spikes of amusement. This makes no sense, said Commander Vrelt, a Quilaxian who'd managed to avoid the Dread Feeder's first assault purely by being on vacation. His tentacles twitched with anxiety. The human should be destroyed by now. We've been monitoring for 17 minutes. Our best warriors lasted 3. Perhaps the readings are wrong, suggested Lieutenant Cree, a floating jellyfish-like being who handled communications. Perhaps the human is already dead and these are just autonomic responses. Then why did we just intercept a signal from his ship ordering pizza? Frelt's voice cracked. The human is using the emergency broadcast system to see if any nearby stations deliver food. Back in the cargo hold, Marcus had indeed gotten hungry. Look, not to be rude, but are we wrapping this up soon? Because I've got a route to finish, and honestly, this whole fear thing is making me think about stuff I usually ignore, which is kind of bringing me down. The Dread Feeder, for the first time in its millennia-long existence, felt something it had only inflicted on others. Inadequacy. Was it losing its edge? Had it become predictable? The universe's fear landscape had certainly changed. Maybe it needed to update its approach. Wait, are you having an existential crisis right now? Marcus peered at the shifting shadow mass. Because, buddy, I know that energy. That's the 3 a.m. What am I doing with my life spiral? I'm intimately familiar with that dance. The creature solidified slightly, taking on what might have been an offended posture, if spatial anomalies could be offended. No, seriously, I recognize the signs. You came in here all confident, tried your routine, it didn't work, and now you're questioning everything. Tale as old as time, really. Marcus sat down on a cargo crate. You want to talk about it? The Dread Feeder did not want to talk about it. It wanted to feed and move on to the next terrified civilization. But it was also, undeniably, very confused and maybe, possibly, slightly interested in why this human was so aggressively unafraid. Against its better judgment, it formed a mouth. How? How what? How do you not fear? Every being fears. It is the constant of consciousness. Marcus shrugged. Oh, I fear plenty of things. I just don't have the energy to fear you specifically. Do you know how much scary stuff happens on a regular Tuesday on Earth? I've gotten like 37 alerts this month about data breaches. My rent went up for the 3rd time this year for no reason. I watched a documentary about microplastics that fundamentally changed how I view drinking water. You're scary, sure, but you're not dealing with customer service while they've got me on hold scary. The Dread Feeder processed this information and found it deeply, profoundly disturbing. The Dread Feeder did something it had never done before. It sat down. Well, the cosmic horror equivalent of sitting down, which involved condensing its form into a vaguely seated shape that hurt to look at directly. I do not understand your species, it said, and there was something almost plaintive in the way reality warped around the words. Join the club, Marcus replied. We barely understand ourselves. It's kind of our whole thing. I have consumed the fears of the Quilaxians, the Vexer Hive, the crystalline monks of Andromeda. All fell before me. All knew terror. Congratulations? I'm not sure what response you're looking for here. Like, that's definitely a resume builder, but it's not the flex you think it is. The creature's form rippled with what might have been frustration. You should be afraid. The very concept of my existence should shatter your mind. Marcus pulled out his phone, checked for signal, got nothing, and pocketed it again. Okay, let me explain something about humans. We're a species that invented horror movies. We pay money to be scared in controlled environments. We created roller coasters, haunted houses, and the concept of calling someone after 9 p.m. without texting first. We've been scaring ourselves for entertainment for thousands of years. That is illogical. Oh, absolutely. We're deeply illogical. We know climate change is happening and just kind of shrug about it. We invented social media and act surprised when it makes us miserable. We're aware that we're hurtling through space on a rock at thousands of miles per hour, and most of us don't think about it even once. Humans are basically anxiety held together by caffeine and spite. The dread feeder tried to process this. But you must fear death. I mean, sure, abstractly. But I'm more worried about dying in an embarrassing way that people will talk about at my funeral. Like, I don't want my legacy to be he tripped over his own shoelaces and fell down the stairs. That's the real fear. What about the void? The endless nothing? Have you met the void? Because I've worked in middle management. The void's got nothing on a 4-hour meeting that could have been an email. The creature was spiraling now, its form flickering through different states of matter. Pain? Surely you fear pain. I've had kidney stones, man. I've seen pain. Your psychological torture isn't even in the top 5 worst things my body's done to me. Loss? The destruction of everything you love? Marcus's expression softened slightly. Okay, yeah, that one gets to me. But here's the thing. If I spent all my time being afraid of losing what I love, I'd never enjoy having it. That's called anxiety, and I already take medication for that. It's very expensive, and my insurance barely covers it, which is, frankly, scarier than you. The dread feeder made a sound like reality sobbing. I do not know what to do with you. Have you tried therapy? Marcus asked, completely serious. Because it sounds like you've built your entire identity around one skill set, and when that skill set doesn't apply, you're lost. That's pretty common, actually. Happens to a lot of people after retirement. I am an eternal being of cosmic horror. And I'm a guy who spent 6 years getting a degree I don't use so I could haul cargo through space while worrying about whether I remembered to water my plants before I left Earth. We all got our thing. There was a long moment of silence. The dread feeder's form stopped shifting, settling into something almost stable. You are strange. You're literally a mass of tentacles and existential dread, and I'm strange? Yes. Fair enough. Marcus stood up and stretched. Look, I'm going to be real with you. You seem like you're going through something. This whole fear-eating gig, is it really fulfilling? Like when you go to sleep at night or whatever you do you feel good about yourself? I do not sleep. That explains so much, actually. Sleep deprivation causes all kinds of problems, irritability, poor decision-making, the works. I do not need sleep. I am sustained by fear. Right. But you're not getting any fear from me. So you're basically running on empty right now. That's got to be affecting your mood. The dread feeder considered this. It was hungry. It had been hungry since encountering this bizarre human. And beyond the hunger was something else. Something it had never acknowledged. Loneliness. Terrorizing civilizations was isolating work. No one wanted to hang out with the cosmic horror that ate their peace of mind. I may have made some poor life choices, the dread feeder admitted quietly. Hey, welcome to consciousness, that's basically the motto. Marcus, despite his better judgment and what he suspected would be a very difficult insurance claim to file, made a decision. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. You're clearly in a rut. Career-wise, emotionally, existentially, the whole package. And I, through absolutely no fault of my own, have stumbled into your crisis. So let's workshop this. The dread feeder's form brightened slightly, which was concerning because it made the shadows somehow darker. Workshop. Yeah, brainstorm. Figure out your options. You've been doing this fear-eating thing for how long? Approximately 3,000 of your solar cycles. Okay, that's a long time in any career. It's natural to want to change. What are your other skills? The creature pondered this. I can exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. I can manipulate perception. I am eternal and unchanging. So you're flexible, you're good with presentations, and you're reliable. That's actually a solid skill set. We just need to rebrand you. Rebrand? Rebrand? Marcus was pacing now, getting into it. Yeah, you're thinking too narrow. Fear's just one emotion. What about other emotions? Could you feed on those? I have never tried. Fear is what I am. But is it what you want to be? Like, philosophically speaking, if you could be anything, would you still choose to be the thing that makes everyone scream? The dread feeder had never been asked this question. It had simply existed, following its nature like a river follows its bed. The concept of choice was foreign and deeply unsettling, which was ironic given its profession. I do not know, it said slowly. What else is there? Oh man, so much. You could be a therapist. You're already in people's heads, right? Just flip the script. Instead of causing fear, help people deal with it. Exposure therapy's huge right now. I would help beings overcome their fears? Exactly. You've got the resume for it. You know every fear in the galaxy. You'd be like a fear specialist. You could charge a fortune, well, maybe not a fortune, therapy should be affordable, but you get the idea. The creature's form shifted, taking on what might have been a thoughtful configuration. This is an interesting concept, right? And think about it. You'd still be working with fear, but in a constructive way. Plus, you'd actually make friends instead of traumatizing everyone you meet. Win-win. I do not need friends. Everyone needs friends, man. Even cosmic horrors. Especially cosmic horrors, actually. You've been alone in the dark for 3,000 years. That's not healthy. They talked for another hour, Marcus laying out the basics of starting a career transition, the importance of networking, and the therapeutic benefits of having hobbies. The Dread Feeder, who Marcus had insisted on nicknaming Dread because it's friendlier, and you need a rebrand, was surprisingly receptive once it got over its initial resistance. So what do you do for fun? Marcus asked. I do not understand the question. Fun, enjoyment, things you do because they make you feel good, not because you have to. I consume fear. Besides that, when you're not working, what do you do? I do not stop working. I exist to feed. Marcus sighed. Okay, we're adding develop work-life balance to the list. You can't just be fear consumption 24/7. That's how you burn out. Trust me, I learned that the hard way. Gerald's voice crackled over the intercom. Marcus, I'm detecting multiple ships entering the sector. Military configurations. They appear to be Galactic Council peacekeeping vessels. Ah, hell. They're probably coming to clean up what they think is going to be my corpse. Dread's form sharpened, becoming more defined and aggressive. They will attempt to destroy me. Yeah, that tracks. They're not big on nuance, the Council. Very shoot first, fill out paperwork later energy. Marcus thought for a moment. Okay, new plan. We're going to show them you're reformed. We'll do a demonstration. Prove you're not a threat anymore. I am a threat. I am the threat. Not with that attitude. Come on, we've got maybe 10 minutes before they get here. Let's teach you some basic therapeutic techniques. Do you know how to do a breathing exercise? Wait, do you breathe? No. Okay, we'll skip that one. The Galactic Council's strike force arrived in formation, weapons hot, ready to face the Dread Feeder and extract whatever remained of the human. They'd brought enough firepower to sterilize a small moon, because the Council didn't mess around with Class Omega threats. What they found was Marcus Webb teaching an eldritch abomination how to fold paper cranes. No, see, you fold it like this, Marcus was saying, demonstrating with a piece of printer paper he'd scrounged from his office supplies. It's called origami. Very meditative. Good for stress relief. Dread, who had condensed itself into a roughly humanoid shape made of shadow and possibility, was attempting to manipulate a piece of paper with appendages that existed partially outside normal space. The crane looked like it had been folded by someone having a mild seizure, but it was technically a crane. Commander Vrelt's voice came over the comms, shaking. Human Marcus Webb, please confirm your status. Are you under duress? Blink twice if the entity is controlling you. Marcus looked up and waved. Oh hey, no, I'm good. We're just working on coping mechanisms. Dread here is transitioning careers. It's a whole thing. No. Dread? Yeah, it's a nickname. The whole dread feeder thing was kind of aggressive for professional rebranding. The strike force ships held position, apparently too confused to know what to do. This was not covered in any tactical manual. Lieutenant Kree's voice cut in. The entity is called Dread now? I did not choose this name, Dread said, its voice causing 3 of the bridge officers to need sedatives. But I have accepted it as part of my personal growth journey. There was a long silence. Vrelt finally spoke. I'm going to need you to explain what's happening here because our readings make no sense. Marcus set down his paper crane. Okay, so short version. Dread tried to eat my fear, but I'm human, and we're basically already afraid of everything all the time, so it didn't work. Then Dread had an existential crisis. We talked it out, and now we're exploring alternative career paths. I suggested therapy, specifically fear-based exposure therapy, because Dread's got the skills and experience. You're telling me, Vrelt said slowly, that the entity that broke the Quilaxian Empire in 4 days is now considering a career in therapy? Technically, I am already qualified, Dread added. I have intimate knowledge of every fear in the known galaxy and can manifest them in controlled environments for therapeutic purposes. This is insane, Kree whispered. Is it, though? Marcus countered. Think about it, you've got countless species out here dealing with trauma from various sources. Wars, disasters, existential dread about their place in the universe. And here's Dread, an expert in fear who's looking for a career change. It's actually perfect. Dread held up its malformed paper crane. I am also learning hobbies. This is supposed to be calming, although I find the process frustrating. That's normal, Marcus assured it. Hobbies are supposed to be a little frustrating, that's part of the fun. I do not understand fun yet, but I am willing to learn. The strike force had a hurried conference. Eventually, Vrelt spoke again. We would need proof that the entity is no longer a threat, a demonstration. Can do, Marcus said. Dread, want to show them your new approach? Dread's form shifted, becoming more concentrated. I will need a volunteer. There was an extremely long pause. Finally, one of the junior officers, a small reptilian named Skeet, transmitted hesitantly. I have a fear of deep water. It has affected my ability to perform certain duties. Excellent, Dread said, and for the first time there was something almost enthusiastic in its tone. We will begin with a simple visualization exercise. I will manifest your fear in a controlled manner, gradually increasing intensity while teaching you grounding techniques. The goal is not to eliminate the fear, but to give you tools to manage it. Over the next 20 minutes, Dread walked Skeet through an exposure therapy session that, while terrifying, was carefully calibrated and actually seemed to help. By the end, Skeet was able to visualize deep water without panicking, which was more progress than 3 years of traditional therapy had achieved. That was actually helpful, Skeet said, sounding surprised. Terrifying, but helpful. The terror is part of the process, Dread explained. You must face fear to overcome it. I simply provide a safe environment for that confrontation. Marcus beamed like a proud parent. See? Natural talent. We've been working on the bedside manner, but that'll come with practice. The strike force withdrew, still confused, but unable to argue with results. The council would need to convene and discuss this unprecedented situation, which would take months and involve an ungodly amount of paperwork. Marcus prepared to continue his route, and Dread prepared to set up practice. They exchanged contact information, which was complicated because Dread didn't have a phone and existed partially outside normal time-space. You're gonna do great, Marcus said. Just remember, validate feelings, set boundaries, and always suggest journaling. Beings love journaling. I will remember. Thank you, Marcus Webb. You have given me something I did not know I lacked. What's that? Purpose, and a hobby that is frustrating but apparently calming. They parted ways, Marcus heading back toward civilized space and Dread remaining in Sector 9, which would now become the galaxy's most unusual therapy center. 6 months later, Marcus received a message. Dread had successfully treated 15 patients and had a waiting list of 47 more. The Quilaxian general had been Dread's first major case, and while he still slept with a nightlight, he'd returned to active duty. Dredd had also taken up watercolor painting, which it found deeply satisfying despite having no hands. And the final note. Dredd's newest patient was a Vexer warrior with an intense phobia of humans, developed after hearing stories about their bizarre relationship with fear and their tendency to adopt anything as a pet. Marcus laughed so hard he spilled his coffee, which was still somehow the scariest part of his day.